So I'm going to do it in English, so it will be a little bit interesting. I'm really excited to be here, so first time speaking. I'm going to talk about rug pulls today. Now, rug pulls is a very interesting topic, and why is that? Because as an investor in the secondary market trading, you might find yourself lose a lot of money if you don't know how to spot a rug pull immediately, or basically mitigate rug pulls. So let's start with a basic definition about what a rug pull is. So rug pull is a malicious maneuver where developers of a project drain its liquidity in order to take profits at the expense of the investors, right? So I would like to start with a question. Who thinks here that high yield percentage means a rug pull? So, because a lot of people come to me and say, you know, if I see a high rate, something like this, it means a rug pull immediately, right? So my answer to that is not necessarily. The reason is in today's DeFi world, where we see protocols like Olympus DAO, by the way, it's their percentage yield, right? A lot of protocols are incentivizing investors to provide liquidity, and the investors that provide liquidity the earliest win the highest rate, the highest percentage. So I do agree that most of the scams are offering high yield, but don't get to conclusions too fast. So there are two types of rugs. The first one is a hard rug, meaning it's involving a technological exploit. So using a technological exploit, the developers are able to drain liquidity from a protocol in a very direct way. Usually they vanish, they delete any social media platforms. So this is a hard rug. And the second one, soft rug, it basically means that there is no technological vulnerability inside, but they exploit the trust that has been built between the investors and the protocol itself. Meaning it usually takes over a long period of time, and investors just usually do it by a token dump. So they sell a large amount of tokens, and that way they just make the token price go down. So this is the second type of rug pull. Obviously, there are a lot of rug pulls. Today I'm going to talk about DeFi rug pulls, right? Especially when they're taking 99% of total crypto fraud, right? DeFi. So 3 ways to get rugged in DeFi. First one is by a token dump. Developers selling a large amount of tokens in order to make the price drop. Second one is a vulnerability or a backdoor in the smart contract. We're going to get into 2 study cases involving that. And the third one is by front-end UI manipulation. So this type of attack usually happens when investors are being asked the wrong type of wallet permissions or are redirected into the wrong smart contract addresses. So we're not going to focus on this today. We're going to focus on smart contracts, and we're going to see some code. So it's going to be exciting. So this case is going to show you why security audits are not enough to show that a protocol is safe. Maybe some of you know about Compounder. Compounder was audited by 2 major firms. One of them is Solidity Finance. The second one is DeFi. So DeFi is not an audit firm, but they're an aggregator for safe protocols. They audit protocols for a living, and then they show it in an aggregator like how safe they are. DeFi stated that Compounder has no suspicious functions and the code seems to be safe. So needless to say that shortly after, Compounder Finance rugged their investors for $11 million. And the thing is that DeFi was right. There were no backdoors, no suspicious functions, but let's see how it happened. So it all started with this piece of code. Compounder has this mechanism called upgradability. Upgradability means that developers can upgrade the code at any given time, basically change the implementation of the smart contract by using a function. In this case, it was a strategy, right? There were strategy smart contracts for Compounder that were in charge of functionalities like token minting, token burning, etc. So obviously, who has access to them can do a lot of bad things. They queued a transaction using a time lock. So for you guys who don't know what a time lock is what all protocols implement in order to show transparency So before they take any sensitive actions like changing the code implementation, they have to announce it through the time lock, meaning that only after they announce it, it takes about usually minimum 48 hours until it can actually happen. So we know in advance, right? So the EQ transaction, nobody paid attention to it. Nobody's monitoring the, very, very little people are monitoring the blockchain. And the new strategy contracts that were changed, they had a new function called in case tokens get stuck, which what they did is withdraw all liquidity from protocol to the developer's choice. So, at least tokens aren't stuck anymore, right? But this is the way how they rug the protocol itself. So this is a second study case that Arkhivist was involved. We took this protocol called 88MPH. We audited it, and we saw a very similar characteristic called upgradability. So we said, it's very interesting. So if it happened with Compounder, it can happen the same in here, right? So we audited 88MPH. We found the upgradability for the MPH token contract, which is basically in charge for minting tokens, etc. And the MPH token contract was behind a decentralized smart contract, meaning the developers can't affect it. And behind it was a time lock that could access the decentralized smart contract in case they want to change it. And then the governance could only access the time lock, and then the developers were in charge of the governance. Very interesting, right? So if you look at the layers, it seems very safe that the governance is the only one able to change the smart contracts, but eventually what we see in reality is the developers of a project and its investors are usually owning the majority of governance. So we monitored it, and then we got an alert, right? So this is why it says don't trust, verify. So even if we audit it, we have to monitor in order to make sure that this doesn't happen. So we saw this alert saying that MPH token owner has been queued to change. And when looking into the alert, we could see that the new owner that has been queued to change to is the developer wallet himself. Meaning giving the developer of the protocol access to mint infinite amount of tokens anytime he wants. So I alerted about it. I don't play games when I see stuff like this, even if it's not a rug pull, even if I'm gonna make a bad name for the protocol owners, this is very suspicious, and they didn't even communicate about it. So I alerted about it immediately. And I'll say for 88MPH that they didn't rug pull yet, but what they basically did is they said, oh, we wanted to surprise investors because we're going to upgrade to a new version. After a couple of weeks, they upgraded to a new version. But I have a question for you. As investors, would you put your money in a pool that only requires one private key in order to drain all of it? Because maybe the developer is a good guy, but what happened if his computer got hacked? Somebody stole his wallet, right? I don't know, his grandma was in the house and she really likes tokens. So she would come and steal all the tokens immediately, like what would you do then? Nice surprise, right? So I alerted about it immediately, and this is what we do at Arkhivist, right? We just look out for security standards in real time. So I want to get into two other cases very quickly. Two other cases. The first one is Cream Finance. You heard about it, $130 million stolen. We're not going to get into it because it looks like this, right? So the second thing is MonoX, $31 million stolen. And how it happened is they used a broken mechanism for swapping the same token, basically able to pump the token's value and just steal all funds, right? But why did I get into this? Because these are not rug pulls, right? These are exploits in the code. The thing is, in today's space, it's become so complex to identify what is a rug pull and what is a vulnerability, what is a hack. Because what's best as a scammer? Stealing all money and still remaining the victim, right? He could create a new wallet and just say, oh no, I was hacked. Maybe he implemented this code in advance, right? So just last slide. So how are we going to stay safe from rug pulls, right? A couple of ways. First, this is the A of the ABC. We do proper due diligence of the idea and the team we're investing in. Second is we reach efficient frontier. We gotta invest in many protocols so we don't put everything in the same basket, right? Third thing is you gotta have a team of security experts behind your back, because many protocols, like over 99% of crypto fraud is in DeFi. You may find yourself having a lot of bad baskets, right? And the fourth thing is never trust security audits. Always verify in real time. Implement a monitoring technology, especially when you're institutionals. When you're in an institution, you gotta know what's happening in real time. And the last thing is use a secured front end, because you might get asked for certain permissions that you weren't supposed to give out, and you might get referred to the wrong smart contracts. But having a one-stop shop is the best implementation in order to invest safely. So this is all. Thank you, guys.